James Ellroy, Crime Vintage Paperbacks. Hi, I'm Gary Lovisi, and this time we're going to take a look at the vintage paperback crime novels of James Ellroy, the demon dog of crime fiction, self-styled, self-called. James Ellroy was born in 1948, and he had a rough life. At the age of 10, his mother was murdered, and that caused him to lead a tough life on the streets and petty crime and all kinds of things that he got involved in. And this would eventually, when he became a writer, make him become a truly great writer who really understood all the evil and the hopelessness of crime. He was a golf caddy at one point, and with that knowledge, he began his first book, and that's this one here, Brown's Requiem. Brown's Requiem came out as a paperback original in 1981. These are the first three books, paperback originals of James Ellroy. The second book was Clandestine, which came out in 1982, all the Avon books. And the third book was Killer on the Road, or Silent Terror. It's Silent Terror was the original title, and then when it was reprinted by Avon, it was retitled Silent Terror. Ellroy's stuff it's wicked crime. It's crime in a wicked, with all the wickedness that you can pour into it. Horrible, terrible things happen, and it's just amazing. The force that he writes, the hard-boiled attitude, the noir sensibilities in his work is just staggering, and it's hard to read sometimes. It leaves you breathless a little bit sometimes because you're reading. You can't stop reading him, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going to happen next? How is this going to end up? It's really going in a bad place, and he knows what it was like being in a bad place. So it comes through in his writing. These are the first three books that he did, and well, this one here, Silent Terror, those three, and then it was retitled as Killer on the Run.
On the Road.
On the Road. He next wrote the series of three books on Lloyd Hopkins, a hard-boiled crime detective, hard-boiled police detective, LA cop. And the first book was 1985, again from Avon Books. This is now there. These are first paperback printings, vintage paperbacks. 1985 is Blood on the Moon, which was reprinted with a new cover in a few years later. Blood on the Moon. And the next one is Because the Night, which came out in 1984. And there was a reprint by Avon Books in 1987. And then the Mysterious Press did a edition of the third book, the Lloyd Hopkins book, in 1986, which was Suicide Hill. The blurb here is Hopkins continues to make Dirty Harry look like Dick Tracy, and it's pretty accurate. I'm not sure if offhand which is the book. Yes, okay. So Blood on the Moon was the basis for the movie James Wood movie Cop. So this was made into the movie Cop with James Wood. Have you seen that movie? That is a relentless, hard-boiled crime novel movie, and this is the movie. This is the book that it was based on. The other books, paperbacks of vintage paperbacks of James Ellroy. He wrote the L.A. Quartet in 1987. Mysterious Press put out the Black Dahlia. These are now all first paperback printings. Black Dahlia, which is based on his version of what happened in the famous murder case of Elizabeth Short in Los Angeles in the 1940s. And it segues somewhat into the murder of his own mother, because his mother was killed when he was 10 years old. And so there's this would a lot of the feelings and some of the parts of this book would come from his own experience, but also his book My Dark Places, which was an autobiography, would kind of do a Black Dahlia take on what happened with his mother and what he had to go through. But the L.A. Quartet, the first book in the series, 1987, was Black Dahlia. The next book in 1988, and this was just a great book, takes place in Los Angeles in 1950, The Big Nowhere. This is where he hit his stride. This is an unbelievable book. This is a Mysterious Press paperback, and takes place in 1950, and it's L.A. at its most rotten and disgusting, except the next book in the L.A. Quartet came out in 1990 is L.A. Confidential, which shows L.A. is even more rotten. And this is, of course, the movie that they made with Russell Crowe and a whole bunch of great actors and actresses in it. Terrific
Kim
movie.
Basinger?
Kim Basinger, yeah, and many others. It was a terrific movie. But this book is these two books are just woof. Oh, man. Well, one goes into the other, the same characters. You see them growing and changing, and it's just amazing. And the fourth book in the series came out in 1992, and that was White Jazz. Now, Ellroy also has later on he did a Underworld USA trilogy, and the paperback edition of that from 1995 from Ivy Books is American Tabloid. Now that's pretty much the vintage paperback, mass market paperback sized books of James Ellroy. The other two books in the series, The Cold 6000 and Bloods Are Over, came out later and were in trade paperback. And he has another series, which is the second L.A. Quartet, which has Perfidia and This Storm, which are also, and there may be a third that already came out, that they're all in trade paperback. So there's a larger trade paperback size, which I'm not going to get into here. What I wanted to show you was the early James Ellroy books, the 3 paperback originals that came out in the early 80s when he was just starting out as a young writer and rocking the world as the demon dog of crime fiction. I mean, his stuff was intense and it was great. It's great to read. You couldn't put it down. And he's a hell of a writer. He has a lot of energy and he has a lot of intensity in his work. And I just wanted to show you some of these more uncommon editions that you don't usually see these days. Now you see all of his books being published. There are the first paperback printings, of course, where it came out in hardcovers originally. But those three first paperbacks I showed you were paperback originals, and then they were later reprinted in hardcover. But all of them are in hardcover now, and they're in trade paperback. But these are the first paperback originals and the first paperback printings of these books. Two of them were made into movies, as far as I know. Two of them books were retitled, and all of them are great. And if you like James Ellroy, if you like hard-boiled, wicked crime fiction, then these are books for you. He's a master at hard-boiled crime, and master of noir suspense, and just really weird shit going on in these books. It's crazy stuff. But it's like mirrors probably some of the things he's seen in his life, but also stuff that is in life, the corruption. Another thing that you'll see in his books is the unbelievable corruption of everything in society. Things that we hold dear, organizations that we hold dear. You see, he lifts up a big, heavy rock and shows you all the squishy, disgusting maggots that are squirming underneath that rock. And that's the corruption that he shows you. And it's like, when I read these books originally, I thought, boy, he's really going really far and wide. But you know what? Years later now, looking at it, I think he didn't go far and wide enough. He didn't go nowhere far and wide enough. But his stuff, it's great stuff. And I hope you enjoyed this look at Ellroy and the early crime vintage paperbacks of his. And if you did, give us a thumbs up and a like. And thanks for looking. See you next time.